Over the past few months, it's become painfully obvious that Disney's well aware of the disaster that they've got on their hands when it actually comes to Rachel Zegler and the Snow White movie. Now, this whole thing is a result of years of Rachel Zegler running her mouth, bashing the original Snow White, and trashing the fans, and basically making it clear that if you don't see the world her way, she doesn't want you supporting her movies. I mean, sounds like a real smart strategy, huh? Well, guess what it isn't. Now, over the last few months, I've noticed, you've noticed, we've all noticed something different with Rachel Zegler and everything and Snow White itself. And it's like Disney is doing some sort of frantic PR cleanup to just go ahead and save Snow White from the fallout over the endless stream of controversial comments and remarks from Rachel Zegler. All right. Now, certainly, Rachel Zegler is out there talking about how passionate the fans are and how it's totally okay if people, disagree. I mean, yeah, sure, that's rich coming from someone who has been openly hostile towards anyone who even slightly questions her woke ideology and woke interpretation of Snow White. Now, it's pretty obvious that Disney is desperately trying to go ahead and simply spin the narrative itself. But guess what? It's not working, as you all know. Now, they know that they've got a huge PR nightmare on their hands with Rachel Zegler at the center of it. And guess what? They're actually scrambling to do even further damage control, okay? And now, I mean, if you ask me, it seems like, Disney's strategy is just to go ahead and keep Rachel Zegler away from the press as much as humanly possible. I mean, I've reported on this briefly before, but I'm going to get into more definite in details on this one. I mean, think about it. There was a report just a few days ago about how Disney scrapped the UK Snow White premiere just to go ahead and avoid the inevitable negative publicity surrounding Rachel Zegler. I mean, if you ask me, that's not exactly a confident move for a movie that they spent over $300 million on. And guess what? Now they're doing the same thing right here in the U.S. by trying to keep Rachel Zegler out of sight as much as they can. Okay, and we shouldn't be see this as a surprise anyway. So they're still technically having the Hollywood premiere for Snow White, but guess what? It's not the grand event that we usually see. Now, normally these things are packed with media outlets, red carpets, and all the glitz and glamour of Disney can muster, but not this time. Nah, they actually scaled it way back. All right. Now, they're having a small pre-party and a screening at the El Capitan Theater, but I mean, they're not letting the media in. That's pretty suspicious. Anyway, only a few photographers and Disney's own house crew will be there. Okay, it's almost like they're more interested in actually trying to go ahead and keep controlling the narrative around Snow White and Rachel Zegler than actually promoting the movie itself. I mean, just imagine that. I mean, it's crazy. They want to go ahead and keep the outsiders out and everything. And of course, they're trying to go ahead and make it look like this is about Gadot too, throwing her name into the headline like she's some kind of equal controversy to Rachel Zegler. I mean, come on now, give me a break. Gal Gadot's no saint either, but she's nowhere near the level of backlash that Rachel Zegler has been getting. Now, the real problem is Rachel Zegler and how her comments have actually overshadowed everything about Snow White, okay? At least the remake itself. They're actually trying to go ahead and spread the blame around, but guess what? It's not working. It's not sticking. They've hit a wall right here. But what's funny is that Disney is still sending Rachel Zegler on these little PR trips to places like Tokyo and even Spain. Now, she's not really doing interviews, though. You see, they'll just simply have her, sing a song, make an appearance, and then shuffle her right back out to without answering any questions. Kind of remind me of a certain former vice president political candidates. But it's almost like they're terrified of Rachel Zegler will open her mouth and make things even worse for the Snow White remake. But meanwhile, Gal Gadot is out there, doing all the heavy lifting and stuff, making solo appearances on shows like Good Morning America, Live with Kelly and Mark and Jimmy Kimmel Live as well, without Rachel Zegler anywhere in sight. Okay, and that's just sad right there, but not surprising. But It's also kind of hilarious how obvious it all is. You see, Disney is basically muzzling Rachel Zegler because they know that she's a walking PR disaster for Snow White. And honestly, can you blame them? I mean, if Rachel Zegler gets even a single question that's off script, I mean, who knows what nonsense might come out of her mouth. And you see, they know that she's got a knack for saying some pretty dumb stuff, okay? And it's like they're actually going to put her on ice until this whole thing blows over. Kind of reminds me of the whole, actors union strike that they had, where she stated that she deserves to get paid more for every time she wears the dress, okay? But it's actually ironic that Mark Markin from Variety is actually reporting on all of this, since he's one of the guys who helped to actually kick off this whole mess. Now, y'all might remember him from a clip at D23 where, Rachel Zegler said that they were going to be bringing, a modern edge, if you will, to Snow White. And when he asked her to explain what she meant by that, she basically made it clear that Prince Charming was out and some kind of, strong, fearless leader and stuff. Snow White was in. And it was one of those moments where you knew the fans weren't even going to go ahead and be happy about it either. And it's also that same interview where Rachel Zegler went, weird, weird. And it didn't stop there. In another interview, Rachel Zegler made some weird comment about how the prince was just basically stalking Snow White and everything. You all remember that. I remember it. I mean, that's just pretty much bizarre stuff right there. You could practically hear the collective groan from Disney fans all around the world. And it's one thing to modernize the classic, but it's actually another to go ahead and completely trash the story that people actually love. And that's what Rachel Zegler doesn't seem to get. You see, people don't want Snow White to be some sort of modern day woke feminist manifesto. They just want a timeless fairy tale. It's that simple. I mean, but what I find especially funny is how Disney clearly wants to avoid any situation where Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot are actually seen together. I mean, y'all remember the Oscars, what happened there, right? Where they barely even looked at each other. And it was actually like, they couldn't stand to be in the same room together. And now Disney's going out of their way to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen during the press tours. All right. Now, if they do have to appear together, it's probably just going to be for a quick photo op. OK, and that's just about it. And this whole thing, if you ask me, is just basically a massive train wreck. Now, imagine spending $300 million on Snow White only to realize that your lead actress, Rachel Zegler, is more of a liability than an asset. I mean, you know what that tells me? Disney knows that they've got a flop on their hands. They're just going to go ahead and try to do as much damage control as at this point as much as possible. Now, there's no way they actually believe that Snow White is going to go ahead and make them any profits. And why would it? You see, fans are already fed up with Disney's constant pandering and stuff and woke messaging. I mean, this just feels like more of the same mess right there. You constantly do the same thing, expecting a different result. That's just insanity. And let's not forget about how those late ticket sales started for Snow White. Usually, when Disney's confident in a movie, they start selling tickets way in advance. But for this one, they waited and waited, almost like they were going to go ahead and start trying to gauge out how much interest there actually was. Spoiler alert, it wasn't much. They know that people weren't lining up to see Snow White, and it's just sad at this point, okay? But moving along, I mean, the reality is that it's simple. Fans don't want to be lectured to. They don't want to be told that their favorite stories like Snow White are problematic and that it needs fixing. But they just wanted to go ahead and enjoy a movie without politics getting shoved down their throats, without being preached at and stuff and preached down to. But Disney's so deep in their ideological bubble that they can't even see why people are rejecting this stuff. You see, they're actually doubling down on a failed strategy, hoping and expecting a different result, and it's coming back to bite them big time. That's what happens. We go ahead and chase after that DEI money. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is what happens when you let activists run the show instead of just the storytellers that actually love the stories. You end up with a product that no one wants, and then you're stuck trying to go ahead and hide your own star, Rachel Zegler, because you're scared that she'll tank the movie even further. I mean, it's like watching a slow motion car crash at this point, and Disney's just sitting there, simply just pretending to go ahead and state how and see that everything is fine. But honestly, it's kind of sad to see how far Disney has fallen with Snow White. Okay, now this used to be the studio that brought us classic stories that actually stood the test of time, but now, I mean, it's just one embarrassing controversy after another. And the more that they try to go ahead and salvage this massive train wreck, the worse it gets. And you can almost feel the panic settling in, and it's not a good look. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. I do respond to all comments. Be sure to smash the like button, and share this video to social media. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell for notifications, so that way you'll be notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.